Hey, my name's ShawNshawN. I sell art on ShawNshawN.co. Today we're going to review Death on the Nile. So this is a film by Kenneth Branagh. Time is 2 hours 7 minutes, so pretty, a little bit longer than an hour and a half I like, but it's a really involved character, detective kind of story, and there's a lot of different characters and possibly who did it, so you need to kind of develop all those characters, so I think you really need probably 2 hours on this. Actors are Kenneth Branagh plays Hercule Poirot. Interesting, he's directing himself. I just noticed that. Emma Mackey plays Jacqueline de Bellefort. Arnie Hammer plays Simon Doyle. Gadot plays Linnet. Ridgeway, the rich heiress. Tom Bateman plays Bouc. Annette plays Euphemia Bouc, his mother. Rose Leslie plays Louise, Bourget, and there's many other characters, obviously. So the story is Detective Poirot is on a little vacation in Egypt, and he runs into this wedding party, and they invite him on a cruise on the Nile, and he's like, oh, this is kind of nice. And then while they're on the Nile, this newlywed gets murdered, and then he starts to investigate and tries to figure out who did it. Will he solve it before they arrive back in Cairo? So the last version of this film was another Agatha Christie film I think they did a few years back was Murder on the Orient Express, which I think has been several times. I don't know how many times they did Murder on the Orient Express, but more than Death on the Nile, I think. It's a really great Agatha Christie novel, so you have a lot of depth to the film to put together. I mean, the book is going to be really in depth, so it's a great backdrop to build a script off of if you want to do a movie. It's always great to have a novel, and then you kind of boil it down to a script. Sometimes it's going to be more challenging than others, like The Shining. I know Kubrick kind of threw out a lot of what Stephen King had wrote and rewrit a lot of parts and came up with a masterpiece, obviously, but there's always kind of sign of a, sometimes it's hard to transition from a book to a film, but I think they did a really good job here. I wanted to see how it would evolve because I haven't really read Agatha Christie, so when they did the Murder on the Orient Express, there's a spoiler alert, but everyone's involved. So I was like, they can't do that again. It has to only be like 1 or 2 characters tops in this one. And basically that's kind of what turns out. It's only 1 or 2 characters, right? But then there's multiple people being killed off. And you're like, why are these people getting killed? Because they have no connection. I mean, everyone's kind of a suspect because everyone has a diatribe against the newlywed who gets murdered. So it's kind of like, wow, who is the murderer, It's always interesting to see how they transition from a written novel to a movie, which is a visual medium, especially for a detective movie, because it's much harder to cover up who the criminal is, I think, with a visual format versus a written format. You can kind of hide a lot of stuff in the book. You don't really see people's faces in the book. If you don't write about it, you don't really know their expressions, but obviously people have micro expressions, and you probably would be able to see who the killer was, and they reveal it in the very final scene, obviously, and then you see a little bit of the micro expressions. But before that, you really don't know who the murderer is, so it's a really great distraction back and forth between who did it and who could possibly do it, and you interviews that person. Is it this person? Is that person? So I think they did a really great job of misdirection, but at the same time, basically what a detective would really do. I think they did a really great job from the casting, and the acting was really great in this, because a film like this, there's very little special effects in this film, so they really rely on the acting, on the sets, on the costumes. I think they did a really good job in the acting and putting that together on the editing side. Maybe it's easier than doing a CGI film, I don't know, but I like it. I respect it more because it's kind of like that traditional film format. This is direct from, you could have done this in a theater play and then straight to film. And they probably obviously did this many times as a play. They put a lot of great effort into the sets and the costumes. You have the 1930s boat, the costumes, the jewelry, the mannerisms, the way people talk and the way they dress. If you see the version from 1978, it has a 70s feel to it. I mean, this was going to obviously feel like a 2000s film feel to it, not 2020s version of the film, obviously. And later they'll be like, man, this looks so out of date, But it's interesting how that kind of evolves over time, how they do period pieces. Before it looks kind of tacky and you're like, what are they thinking, So it's really interesting how that changes, how they do a Western, how they do a 30s film. Sometimes probably they would have done this in the 30s, they would have done a more cine noir, so it's kind of interesting how they would have shot this, lighting and the way it, you know, it comes across in the generation it's actually filmed in, even though it's supposed to be shot in the 30s, right? Yeah, so I thought they did a really great job. I'd recommend it. If you'd like to subscribe, you can subscribe below. And I'll see you in the next movie review. Thanks for watching, guys.